Welcome, gamers, to Basement Arcade Pause Menu, the show where we hit pause, sit back, and just chill. I'm your host, Ben Magnet, and today on the show, my guest is a little different. Now, if you've been following the show for quite a while, I've had friends on from the Twitterverse. I've had friends on I met at conventions. This time, however, and if you've listened to not only Pause Menu, but the Fake Nerd podcast, you always hear me mention that I write for Old School Gamer magazine. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the publisher, creator, and somehow my boss, Ryan Berger. Ryan, I cannot believe it's taking me this long to ask you to come on the show. I have been wanting to ask you to come on, and finally you are here. We're going to talk about the magazine, and at the same time, I'm trying to be like, how do I approach this? Because in a weird way, you kind of are my boss. This is really weird.
I mean, it would count more if I actually paid you though too. But well, I mean, that's the way a lot of this magazine business works. I don't make any money on this. I literally have no employees in the corporation, and the tax people ask me why. It's like, well, I'll make some money off of it as someday, but it's not a real concern. We have a couple of people that are contractors. We have a couple of people that do some different stuff for us. I'm just having fun. This is a way of having a hobby that is supposed to pay for itself.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll definitely get into like how I got into Old School Gamer, how we met, and like later down the line. But good sir, every time I've had a brand new guest on the show, I always ask them this one question: how did you get into video games?
First video game system. Well, actually, let's go earlier. The first computer system I had that I played games on would have been a TI 99 4A. My dad would have gotten back in about 80, 81 or so. And had cartridges. Big games on it were Munchman, which was like Pac-Man, Parsec, which was like Defender, and I used to program on it real basic command stuff and save it off on a cassette tape. So that dates me really bad. First video game console is even better story. I can literally remember being in Sears and my dad buying the Sears branded version of the Intellivision.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can remember that real well. Cincinnati, Ohio, Sears, probably Sears and Roebuck back then. And I remember it. So I go through and play with consoles and computers throughout the 80s, early 90s. Always used a computer a lot. Never really got too much into the heavy 8-bit, 16-bit generation. Played with friends, went to arcades. I can remember going to Chuck E. Cheese for my 12th birthday or whatever it was. But really in the last 15 years, I've started going back and buying things that mom sold at the garage sales. We all had that. You move out of the house, mom says, she didn't need this stuff anymore, and sells it off. Well, I've been going back and buying in televisions. I have an Apple IIc computer sitting right over here at my desk. I don't do anything with it except to look at it. I've got boxes of Pool of Radiance and Ultima and that kind of stuff, just because I want to remember the memories. And I've been having fun. And off of that, that's where Old School Gamer came from.
Nice. Now, when you say television, because obviously in television, when I hear like the names Intellivision, ColecoVision, Atari 2600, the Atari VCS, I'm weird. I like to like categorize like different eras of retro video gaming, and I put those type of systems in what I call the primordial era, because it was those guys were the Wild West in terms of video games.
Yeah, the only thing that's really before those is the dedicated stuff, like the Pongs. Stuff to that effect. I mean, these are games that were written in 4K. Yeah. And through everything I've done, I've gotten to meet these people. I mean, at Portland, I've talked with Howard Scott Warsaw regularly. I know you said you met him and stuff. And getting to meet these people, Ken Williams from Sierra fame, the Bushnells, the current owner and CEO of Atari. I'm just having a freaking blast. I want to keep this party going.
Yeah, because last year at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, both of us were there, and I did tell you I not only got to meet Howard Scott Warshaw, he was on the show beforehand, but I 100% agree with you. Just meeting these people, even especially when it comes to video games that were definitely long before my time. I mean, I was born in 1990, so I was born right at the cusp of the 8-bit, 16-bit transition.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like my first system was a PlayStation, and I remember seeing a Super Nintendo. And
you saw Super Nintendos at a garage sale.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. I was playing one in college. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's see. I graduated high school in 1990. Oh, geez, it does date us as being totally different generation, doesn't it?
But the cool thing about video games, especially when it comes to retro video games, it I mean, yes, there is a bit of an age gap there. I mean, obviously between you and myself, but it's not a bad thing because I love learning about all this. It's one of the reasons why I was drawn to Old School Gamer magazine in the first place, is because I absolutely love learning about video game history. I have a bunch of books over here, like 8 of them are all just video game history books.
Mhm. And the thing is, what we're trying to do and what those authors are doing, what you're doing through your channel and all the stuff that's out there is we're just wanting to document this stuff.
Mhm.
We're wanting to get it down on paper. I was talking with Alan Alcorn. Okay, he was employee number 3 at Atari. He
Oh,
made
wow.
Pong. He made home Pong, and he was telling me stories and about Atari stuff that wasn't in books. It's like, Alan, write a biography. Oh, I don't want to do it. It's like, we need to get these stories out there because the people that are one generation older than me that made these games are in their 70s.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm working with Walter Day, who was heavily involved back in the scorekeeping stuff back in the 80s and everything, and Twin Galaxies and everything. He's 75 or so years old, and we're trying to get his autobiography down before he forgets some of these great things.
Mhm.
So we got to document the history of the video game industry, just like how there's been so many people document movies and document other stuff. We need to do that with the video game industry. And I think there's enough good players out there that we're getting it done before these stories go away.
Yeah, I would definitely say, are you familiar with the Netflix documentary High Score by any
Yes,
chance?
yes.
Yeah. Thankfully, documentaries like that, like High Score, even before that, Game Over, the story of Atari, like how Atari rose to power and, the whole video game crash of 1983, ET, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we are getting some decent video game documentaries, but I 100% agree. A lot of these, a lot of the video games that we know and cherish today, we would not have them if it weren't for the Ataris, the Televisions, the ColecoVisions, or the Pongs or the Space Wars at MIT and those and the colleges back then. So I 100% agree that we do need to get this stuff on paper. Now, another question that I of course I need to ask you is, how did Old School Gamer magazine start? What was the genesis, pun intended? What was the audio listeners? I'm wearing my Genesis hat. What was the inspiration, and what was year one like?
Okay. To rewind, I started thinking about this after going to Midwest Gaming Classic and Classic Game Fest and a couple of other shows, just as an attendee that was really
Mhm.
excited about trying to find a niche on it. At the time, I was publishing, my full-time job was publishing a trade magazine for mobile DJs, the guys who disc jockey school dances, parties, weddings, that kind of stuff. I was
Mhm.
doing a magazine for it at the time. I saw the magazine business was fading and becoming more niche centric in that it's really, really detailed on stuff. I was also in the process of looking at changing careers. So a
Mhm.
bunch of things are kind of coalescing at the same time. I met up with a couple of people at Austin show, Classic Game Fest, and talked to them. And there was some magazines that had been attempted by people who had never done magazines before. Well, I had 15 years experience publishing a magazine. I knew the basics of it. I knew it was a very changing industry that was fading, but I thought I could do something cool with it because of the vibe I saw at Classic Game Fest, Midwest Gaming Classic, and some swap shows. I knew that people were into physical product.
Mhm.
Okay. There's plenty of webcasts, blogs, all kinds of stuff out there. They're doing a great job with this kind of stuff, but there's no successful magazine that got beyond 5, 6 years of access of stuff out there. There was one from Georgia that video game trader that had lasted a while with stuff,
Mhm.
but it wasn't around anymore.
Right.
So I made arrangements to buy the rights to some of those past magazines so I could have a back catalog. I reached out to people I'd met at these shows, people like yourself, if we had met 7 years ago, that were out there asking questions, doing their own media, and said, "Would you like to write for such a magazine?" First issue comes out. See, do I have a copy of the first issue back here? Yeah, I do. First 2 issues. First issue comes out. It's kind of thin, 46 pages. We have a little price guide in the back. We have some reviews, Text Adventures in Early Gaming. We have some stuff. I mean, I had to go a lot further with stuff, and
Mhm.
it starts coming together. I'm financing it with the Disc Jockey magazine and kind of having fun with it. We
Mhm.
start a Patreon for it. We get 100 subscribers or so. We get another 200 or so subscribers within the first year. Our first issue of the magazine, this issue right here, debuted at the Portland Retro Gaming Show.
Oh, nice.
We shipped 2,000 copies today. We ended up giving up 400 or 500, but I had to haul them back
Mhm.
because not everybody wanted it. It's like it was confusing. It's like a print magazine in these days. It's like,
Mhm.
well, this whole thing is about physical product. When you actually own a video game, what you have on your phone, you don't own. If they want to pull it anytime, it's gone. What you buy from the PlayStation 5 store or whatever could be gone. So we want to do some of those physical cartridges. I have a 450 piece collection of Atari 2600 games. I could have every single one of those games on one of these little memory cards, and enough room to store 1,000 copies of every one of those games on these. It's not about just the game. It's about
Mhm.
celebrating it.
Right.
Much more with it. So we put out that first year of magazines. It did okay. It was covering itself okay with stuff. We did a couple more years in a row. We decided about a year and a half ago that we wanted to take it further, get bigger with the magazine, higher quality content, higher
Mhm.
quality stuff. We do our first Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and then it rolls from there. So I don't know how to describe it. I've really enjoyed this, and I want to keep it going. We'll talk about the other Kickstarter stuff later, but
Right.
it's really about a passion. It's about my family business. We travel together. We have fun at these events, and we do a lot. And I don't like doing these trips without them. I mean, I got my daughter Rachel coming with me on the next trip that I'm doing to Portland.
Nice.
I wouldn't do it much other ways.
Yeah. Funny enough, I think that it was your daughter who I talked to when I first found out about Old School Gamer magazine
Mhm.
at Retro City Festival in, I want to say 2018, maybe 2019.
That would have been my daughter Paige, my older
Oh,
of the
okay.
two daughters. Rachel's a young, quieter one, but
Okay.
even Paige, yeah. We were at Retro City, and we were also at what was it called? Southern California. Southern
Mhm.
Cal on the same day they had events there. You meet Billy Mitchell when you were there?
Yeah, I did.
Walter and stuff. Yeah, that was Retro City. That was a
Yeah.
fun event. I wish she had done more of those. So
Yeah, Retro City was absolutely amazing. Funny enough, one of the biggest hits because I went with one of my best friends. He and I just kept coming back to that 3D Pong table. We thought that was the coolest thing ever.
oh the yeah. Have you ever watched any of the videos about how those mechanically works?
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
there's a ton of videos of actually seeing the belts moving the thing around. Oh, it's cool. Just
I
search for it and seeing how it actually works is really cool. I really wanted one of those for my house, but they weren't really geared for.
It is one of those things that what if I ever were to win the lottery, or if something were to happen, like say the podcast, the channel, something just balloons, and I suddenly am able to buy a giant house and I have a lot more of expendable income. It's like, yeah, I'm buying a Pong coffee table. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I've even told my fiance that if we ever get like a big large house, one room, I'm going to turn into my own little basement arcade
Yep.
where I have a bunch of arcade one ups and my entire gaming setup. But yeah, those Atari tables, because I've seen some of them at like physical arcades too, and I'm just like
Yeah,
every time I see one, I'm like, I gotta play this. This is so
yeah.
cool.
It's just the way it shifts, and that was made by someone who was a fan of the original technology.
Hmm.
They wanted to do something that was more than just bing bong back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, my day job is I'm a computers teacher for high school.
Hmm.
And in the coding class, after about a month and a half, and actually we're due to move into it literally probably next week right now, is I show them how the game Pong works and
Mm.
how it's such a simple thing of if it collides with the top third of the bar, it goes at this angle. If it does, and it's all if then statements, stuff like that, explaining the game, the most simple game out there is explained, so the kids understand how a video game works, and everything else is just built on that. I mean,
Okay.
Breakout built on Pong, Arkanoid built on Breakout, and it just all goes up the line from there.
Oh, so you can essentially, I mean, it sounds like you can trace all of like or not all, but like 90% of video games from Pong because Pong started that, and then that started that.
A lot of it started from that. I mean, then there's
Mhm.
other stuff. I mean, you have the whole trace of 3D shooters goes back to Doom
Right.
and before that. But I mean, anything, a lot of those games all trace back to that. I mean, if you want to trace stories back, I mean, all these space shooters started out with Space Invaders. Then there's Galaxian off Space Invaders, and there's Galaga,
Mhm.
and then even other like 1943 is
Mhm.
is. I mean, all games have their beginnings. There are not a lot of really brand new concept games out there. It's all building on the past.
Right. Yeah, because one of the reasons why I love looking at newer indie games, especially today's day and age.
That's where you'll see some
Um,
of those new concepts. Yes.
yeah, not only they'll have new concepts, but also they'll do something different or they'll bring something back. Like right now, it's on my hard drive. I need to play it. I'm still been playing Tears of the Kingdom. That game has taken over my entire life. I'm still not done yet. I'm over 200 some hours. I've been playing that damn thing since bloody March or whenever the game came out, and that's Sea of Stars because it's an older style RPG. It's a turn-based RPG, but everyone like on Twitter or on social media, they've been praising on how much it reminds them of classic games like Chrono Trigger, turn-based style RPGs like Final Fantasy. And even though it's like this is technically a brand spanking new game,
Yes.
it's older concepts, and I love that.
And those games owe themselves to the early NES games, which owe themselves back to Ultima and Wizardry and the
Mhm.
stuff from the 70s and 80s. I mean, everything built. And I mean, I was just looking at there's a new company that acquired the rights to couple of those in television games. A German
Mhm.
company is reinventing some of those old school games. One's called Shark Shark. It's a very basic little game, but they made a cool thing off of it. Astro Smash is being brought back. And getting to meet some of these people is just amazing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just it's fantastic. I mean, I love working within the community of people like yourself that we're all just trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to have fun doing it.
Oh yeah. And just like you said, it's also really fun to talk to people. Like you said, there's people reinventing games. A few episodes back, and even a few months ago at this year's SoCal Gaming Expo, I met a guy who essentially did a different remix on Pong. He called it real Pong, where instead of just one paddle, you have two paddles on each side, and just made it a little bit different, but changed it up into a certain way where I was playing it for a good 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, there's neat stuff out there, and when people throw props to the past with throwbacks stuff like that is great. For instance, the Atari 50 series that came out, I think it was early last year or
Hmm.
early this year. Um, they showed some reinventions of some of the games, and I think they're fantastic. You know, it's I don't know how to describe it. I'm just having a blast doing this,
Yeah.
and um, it lends some extra credibility to what I do during the day.
Hmm.
Um, at my day job, literally on Friday, I had a gentleman named Carlos Pesina. He has worked for NetherRealm Studios, aka Mortal Kombat, since Mortal Kombat 1. Okay, he actually was Raiden in Mortal Kombat 1, digitized in. His brother, um, Daniel Pesina, was what's his name, Johnny Cage, and a couple of the other characters. But he went on to work for NetherRealm Studios. He talked to the kids about what you need. You know, you don't have to just be a programmer geek to do stuff. You can do graphics work, do all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
He started out as the guy that digitized in the kung fu moves, cleaned up the graphics, and made it work on 8-bit. He retired last year as they were working on the new Mortal Kombat 1. He was able
Hmm.
to tell us all kinds of neat little stories about that kind of stuff. And the kids love it. It's like, is that really? It's like, yeah. You know, it's just fun.
It's like yeah, that was me. I did that. It's like he pulls up like an old screenshot of Raiden's and Scorpion fighting. He's like, yeah, you see that? That's me.
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
I showed a history video the day before off of a YouTube channel. I paused it and I said, that guy's going to be on here tomorrow. Some of the kids thought he was actually going to show up, which would have been amazing. But it's like, that's the guy that's going to be here. And doing that connection for people, the vast majority of these people from the past are thrilled to celebrate
Hmm.
what we're excited about. These people that make appearances at the shows. The first Portland show, David Crane walked up to my booth. I'm having this first magazine. David Crane who made Pitfall and all the things, and created Activision, the first third-party publisher, came up and introduced himself to me, and my mouth dropped. I wanted to go find a copy of Pitfall to have him autograph it, and yeah.
Now I remember exactly where I was, because I figured, because I'm a very small podcast. I know I get like maybe a few hundred downloads, maybe here or there. I don't really look at the metrics because I don't want to be depressed.
Well, but you're having fun.
Exactly. And one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask him. So I'm going to just shoot a message out to Howard Scott Warshaw. He has an email that's public, that's public access. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll just let him know what I'm about. I'll just let him know what I just want to talk to him. It could be very long, very short, whatever. And I'll if he answers, cool. If he doesn't answer, well, you know what? I shot my shot, and I'll just let it go. No harm, no foul. Then one of he's kind of like my executive producer in a way. He's also a co-host on one of my other shows. He messages me. He's like, hey, you got a response. And then he adds a smiley face in the text message. And I'm like, what? Go to the email. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to talk about this. This is great. And he came on the show. We talked about Yar's. I got him to sign my copy of ET. I got him to sign my copy of Yar's Revenge. I bought a CIB Yar's Revenge specifically before I went to PRGA to meet him in person. I'm like,
his book is fantastic. I assume you've read it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a sales pitch for his book. It has the right amount of geek factor that tickles my mind as the stuff I don't know about, but I understand enough of it to get it.
Yeah.
He was great. Warren Davis from Qbert fame, same kind of story. Neat stories, neat stuff that's out there.
Oh, yeah. And even when earlier you were talking about how the gentleman who played Raiden is like, you don't have to be a hardcore computer geek. Once again, about a year and a half or so ago, I had the head of marketing over at Yacht Club Games, Celia Schilling. She was on the show, and she was talking, was like, yeah, I mean, if you can code, that's cool. But if you want to if you're an accountant, video game companies hire accountants. It's not that, I mean, it's difficult, but there's other things to do besides just being good with computers.
Yeah, this is a great industry to have fun in. I retired from the disc jockey industry after doing all the stuff with that, and the DJ industry was enjoyable, but there's also a lot of egos out of check because by the nature of a mobile DJ, you have to be able to command a crowd to be on stage and do that kind of stuff, and that was tough. That was tough. There's still some egos and people that are in this industry, but the vast majority of the people are very cool to sit and talk to.
Oh yeah, and just to hear the stories or hear the history of not only our favorite games but what happened. Even I never would have thought, because I never did marketing when I was in college. I was in theater and I was doing radio. Okay. That my degree is in radio from Cal State Northridge. That's what my degree is in. And I bought the book Console War by Blake J. Harris, and that was and at first I was like, I'm probably not going to like this, because when I would read, fiction, fantasy, science fiction, the fun stuff. But then when I finally started reading it and getting into like the nitty gritty of the console war between Sega and Nintendo, and that it wasn't just the advertisements like Genesis does with Nintendo. It wasn't just that. It was also the market share. It was also marketing tactics. And then it was like, how good are the games? What goes on? And then, of course, the whole Senate hearing, stuff that I never knew about.
Yeah, well, you're a little bit young at that point, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell my friends and other video gamers that I am a veteran of the console war, but I joined the war at the very tail end, because then PlayStation was a thing, and my first ever home console was a PlayStation.
Another book, by the way, to give a plug to, of another nice guy to talk to, John Romero.
Oh,
guy, life in first person. I've traded emails with him. Never talked to him. Trade emails with him. There's another book. I'll work on getting him involved with stuff in the magazine, and I'll see if I can throw you a bone to see if we can get him to come on.
John Romero.
So
if there's only one interaction I could have with John Romero, it would be to tell him how when I was a small child, and I'm talking, I was a first grader / kindergartner. No, I was in kindergarten when this happened. My dad comes home from work with a copy of Doom, puts it on our Windows 95 PC. He calls my brother and myself, my brother who was in preschool, by the way, and he is showing us Doom. We get a kindergartner and a preschooler get hooked on playing Doom.
What a game!
A game that, looking back on it nowadays, I should have never been within 100 feet of. But it was one of the most. It's one of those memories that I will cherish for the rest of my life, because just hearing the just hearing that opening, is now seared into my mind. And then, of course, Doom 2016 comes out, and I am just over the moon because I'm like, oh my god, I love this. And yeah, Doom has had a huge resurgence. But yeah, if I could ever talk to John Romero, it would be to thank him for making not only an amazing FPS game, but also for giving me this amazing memory, not only with me, but with my father and my mom, because they would sit behind us watching us play Doom.
Buy his book off Amazon. Get that book and read the book. You'd enjoy it.
I definitely will add that to the list, because right now I'm reading a whole bunch of other stuff because this guy gave me a pretty big assignment that I'm working on.
Yeah, it was a big piece. Well, let's give people a little bit of a tease what we're doing for that next issue that you're part of. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Well, right now, so for the November issue, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for the November issue of Old School Gamer Magazine, I am working on two big pieces. One of them, actually, I have a copy of a book right here. It's not one of the ones I'm reading, but it's from Boss Fight Books. I am writing a big story, or not a story, but an interview on them and essentially what these books are about. Because this one that I'm holding up, audio listeners, is Final Fantasy V by Chris Kohler. And the cool thing about Boss Fight is Boss Fight publishes books that are essentially documentary style books all about video games. And fun fact, I have one of the gentlemen working at Boss Fight who he is the next guest on the show.
Cool.
At the time of this recording, I'm recording with him tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that.
There's a whole nice series of books. I first saw that at the Portland show, and I picked up a couple of them there because they're quick, simpler to read kind of books. The way they lay stuff out is fantastic, and that's a cool series. So, and then the other piece you're working on for me,
I am working on talking to a whole bunch of indie video game developers who make retro inspired games and current retro games, meaning that these are games that are indie inspired, i.e., like not the actual developers, but something like Sea of Stars, something that is retro inspired but came out in today's day and age, and also who would make actual cartridges for these older systems, which is another. I actually did a show with another gentleman a few episodes back who made this game called oh god, what was it? It was Copper something. It wasn't Copperhead, but he designed and created an NES game, made NES cartridges in the year 2022, and you could and he was selling them at Old School Gamer Magazine Expo. My gosh, he was selling them at SoCal Gaming Expo.
Yeah,
and it was like, you made these cartridges in now?
There are people that are doing all kinds of games. I mean, the largest publisher of 8-bit games, Atari Age, just got bought out by Atari, the original one that's doing it. And they've been released. They have 30, 40 releases every year of retro games on old school consoles. And then there's people like Premium Edition Games that are they're taking digital developed stuff and putting them out on physical product. Yeah, there's cool stuff on that. So yeah, you literally have the lead story on that kind of stuff with us. We're working on another piece. I have some other people doing stuff on Broderbund, which would be more before your time. You've heard of Myst. I know you've heard of Myst.
Oh yeah, I've heard of Myst.
Okay, you've heard of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, I loved that game. I would never.
And that's the later stuff that's held on. We're talking Print Shop. We're talking Karateka. We're talking stuff back on the 8-bit computers before you were born, of the stuff. And that's the other article, the other set in this one, that we're doing a multi-part piece on some of that. So we've done 30, that's issue number 37, done 37 issues. There's always a bit of a theme to the issue. I mean, I have a wall of posters up again on my room, which I got to send you the other posters on. I know you've got a lot of them, but each of them, if I look at them, there's RPGs, there's all the Donkey Kong related platformers, their shooters, that kind of stuff. We're working on what we want to do with the next couple issues. So if any of your listeners or subscribers have ideas, take them down. I may not check the feed on this stuff, so take them down and send them to me. We're very open to ideas.
Yeah.
We're having a passion for this, and this magazine is done regularly with the involvement of about 24 people on every issue that goes out the door. There's bloggers, there's all kinds of different stuff with it, but really, it's a passion project for me and my family and my circle of friends.
Yeah, not only that, but it was when I got my free issue of Old School Gamer magazine, it was a convention special issue from Retro City. Mm-hmm. I was flipping through it and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I flipped through that thing a good 5-10-ish times until I see a little blurb. I want to say near the front of the magazine is like, "Hey, if you're interested, send us an email." And I knew I wanted to do something with video games at that point. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot my shot, because I was that weird kid in high school and in college and even in elementary school where our teachers, when they said, "Hey, we're giving you a writing assignment," the rest of the class would go, "Ugh." I would be like, "Bring it on!" Like, come on. I loved writing essays. I loved writing stories. I just loved. I like when the teacher gave us the things like, "Hey, write about a thing or research a topic, go ham on it." Those were always my favorite ones, because to me, it's like I get to do what I want and learn about what I want.
And that's what I want to find, people that are passionate about stuff. Yes, there's assigned stories, like I gave you this one because I knew you could handle a bunch of different kinds of stuff. But there's other people that come to me. There's one guy here in Des Moines, Frank, that's a friend of mine that has a passion just for RPGs. Going back to the JRPG scene, going through all that kind of stuff. And if I need something, I will contact him and say, "I want you to go after this." There's other people that are only into pinball. There's other people that have different things, but then there's people like yourself that will sign up. We'll send out other pieces too. So if you do have an interest in that, get a hold of me through Ben or just hit me up directly. And we want to have people. We want to have more people blogging on our site, like you've done some of too, and just talk about small topics. If something's just on your mind and it interests you in video games, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Writing for the blog is definitely something I need to get back into. Unfortunately, life just takes over.
Yeah.
But even not only writing for Old School Gamer, I could not tell you how elated I was that after I wrote, when I started blogging, because I think I was blogging for you guys, and also full disclosure, we have links to my blogs on the Fake Nerd Podcast website, essentially kind of like a portfolio in a way, so you can read all my old work, and their links up there. And just not only for writing with you guys, I found something that I truly love doing, which is writing about video games. It is something that brings me joy. It's something that I absolutely love doing and talking. And not only was I able to not only get published through you guys, it led me to other places where my work is also getting published, where it's one of those things. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And first of all, I have you to thank for that. So thank you for giving me not only just an opportunity, but a shot to write for you and to let people read my work, but also just for being a cool guy and just be like, "Hey, you like talking video games? Here's an outlet for that. Have fun."
We have fun.
Yeah. So going back into Old School Gamer magazine, you were a publisher. Is there an article that you've written for the magazine that you can think of that the second the idea came into your brain, you're like, "I got to write this. I got to work on this"?
I don't do as much of the writing as I did with the first couple issues. I mean, I'll write stuff, reviews of books or events or places I go to. Best example I can give is meeting Al Alcorn at the California Extreme event about 3 weeks ago. In that, I had no idea he did anything beyond Pong. To create that, I keep on going back to Pong the whole time, but to create something like that, like an Albert Einstein did something, or Thomas Edison did something, to have one big thing in there that changed the world is great. But I found out more stuff that he had done and other things beyond. He called himself an industry disruptor, and that's what he did. He, in some form, invented video slot machines.
What?
Would have had no idea. He was the first person to work with what's his name, Wynn, that owns the Wynn hotels, to make video
Really?
slot machines like in the 90s or early zeros, of realizing that people went gambling for the entertainment, not just for the possible winnings. He did some stuff. He did things like that. He brought that stuff in the conversation, and I have since, literally 3 or 4 days ago, did a full hour-and-a-half long interview with him. That I've got to pull stuff out like that. It's like finding out those things that aren't anywhere. I went and looked at it. It's like, yeah, there's sparse mentions of him doing that in other places. Let's see, what else has hit me?
Right. I just want to put a pin in that for a second, because I am in absolute shock and awe that, because at the time of this recording, I'm going to be going to Las Vegas, and I just came from Las Vegas a few weeks ago. And obviously, you go to Las Vegas, you go to any of the casinos, you just constantly hear the constant ding, 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 ding of the slot machines and stuff.
And they're all video stuff now. Those are all sound effects. Those aren't actually machine doing anything. That's sound effects.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
So now, when I go to Vegas and I see a video slot machine, I'm going to think, wow, the guy who created Pong helped create that.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
He was a disruptor that they made some kind of a technology that allowed, they put cell phones for people for when they're watching TV. You know how the Nielsen ratings is done by people filling little books or keeping track of what TV shows they watch. They were doing something with an early version of what's that software that you can hold up your phone to a song and it'll say what song is being played.
Audio detection or something like that.
Yeah, that automatic stuff. They were using that off of people's phones that they gave them for free to keep track of what people were watching on television to do ratings.
Oh,
just different things. So I mean, it's finding out these stories that aren't there. You know, the things. I mean, everybody knows the story of how this happened and that happened, and Donkey, and Mario was invented off of this, but finding something deeper about things, getting to know people and what their passions were on things. I don't have as much of that. I'll find out some of these cool things, and then I'll set loose one of you guys after it.
Yeah,
is what I do. I just don't have the time to write stuff. I will be the filler writer in the end if something needs to be done.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are like the publisher. You're the guy who wrangles us all. You're like, okay, guys, we got stuff going on. Like, what are the most interesting? Oh,
it's a big coordination effort. It's like wrangling cats.
Yeah. As someone who tried to wrangle his own cat earlier today, I 100% agree. And that's a cat, singular. Multiple cats, yikes.
Okay, you were starting to say.
Oh, no, I was going to say, because one of the assignments that you asked me to do most recently, I think one of my most recent assignments was on Absolute Entertainment, which is a game company that I've heard of, or at least I didn't have really any major recollection of. And ever since I wrote that piece, like, I found out how these guys came from Activision. They essentially started the exact same way Activision did, and they call themselves Absolute to stick it to Activision.
To fit in the alphabet before them and the
yeah, it would show up before Activision and Atari. It was like, essentially, it was a group of people sticking it to Atari, and then a different group of people sticking it to Activision, which to me was like, okay. And now I am noticing their games everywhere. I would be at
they had a real thing going in the early 80s and 90s with stuff. And then the same people went on after they had done their time and retired from stuff, are now a company called Audacity Games, and they're making new releases for the 2600. Dan and Gary Kitchen, who I think you talked to one or two of them, along with David Crane, formed Audacity and are selling new games for the Atari 2600. So it's like, wow. I guess they just get bored in their retirement and want to do something different.
Yeah, and of course now, not only that, the Atari 2600 Plus is coming out soon, and that's like, hey, you got your old Atari cartridges? Plug them in. You want new ones? Plug them in. They're going to work.
I'm playing with one of those in 2 weeks from right now, man. They will have them in Portland.
I want to see how it is, because I told my friends that if I never play Atari, because I have Atari 2600 carts, I have them for collectors reasons. I have them because, two of them are signed by the guy who made them. And I'm like, I'm never letting go of these.
Yeah.
But now there's a way for me to actually play them on an HDMI TV, and it's going to look good. I'm like,
it's going to look good. I'm also been looking at the thing coming out from My Arcade. LA-based company that they're putting out an Atari unit with stuff. I saw a review on it on a YouTube channel. I'll be getting a whole one of those next week and probably seeing at the show. That looks like some really neat hardware. Things have gone way beyond the little plug and play flashbacks that you buy for $25 at Dollar Tree or Dollar General, I guess it would be. They've gone way beyond that, and they're doing some neat stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, thankfully the technology's gotten a lot better because my fiance, during our first anniversary of us just being together, she got me an At Games Genesis. Now this was long before the Sega Genesis Mini came out.
Yeah,
so,
you guys have been together a long time, haven't you? Is that what I remember seeing?
Yeah, we just got engaged this year. We've been together for 9 years.
Okay, that's cool. Cool.
Yeah. So when she got me that Genesis, I was like, oh, this is cool. But then of course I didn't know that what At Games was. I plugged it in. I was like, that sound though. But of course we didn't know. We had no idea.
And you were paying $35 for it. I mean,
it was cheap.
This new thing I was gonna say is Atari Game Station Pro we just pulled up. They're doing by My Arcade. That's be something cool. Which I'll see if I can get a hold of one of those. And you're in LA. Maybe you can stop by and pick it up from them. I'll see if we can get some from someone who did not live through the Atari generation of gaming and see how you can celebrate that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Atari age, like essentially the Atari, the primordial age of gaming or the primordial era of video games is always something that completely fascinates me. Now, I will not lie. My favorite era of video games is 16 and 32, even 64, because, that's when I was like my very first memory of even playing a video game was playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at my next door neighbor's house. My favorite game of all time was Sonic CD. I absolutely love that art style.
Yes.
But even looking back at, because I'm thankful that now I'm at the age of I can appreciate the older stuff, even the older stuff long before my time. Like, if I want to play adventure, or even when I finally got to play Yar's Revenge for the first time at PRGE last year, while yes, graphically it is a very basic looking video game, but design wise, I was surprised on how much fun I was playing Yar's Revenge. I mean, all credit goes to Howard Scott Warshaw. He was the one who created the game. But as I was playing it, because I never played Yars before, I never had access to Yars before. Even though I had a cartridge, I don't have anything that could play it properly. But I'm sitting there playing Yars, and I'm like, this is really fun.
Well, the whole concept back then with Atari was easy to play, difficult to master. Yes, they were simple games, but they got hard really fast.
Yeah, they did. I think I got to like level 3. I don't even know if I did get to level 3. I'm not 100% sure. But I was just having an absolute blast playing Yar's Revenge. And now I've learned about Yar's Revenge. Like, I know how Yars is actually Ray backwards and how he named the main character after Ray Kazar and all this other stuff. And
you do know that the space field going in between there is actual code from the game.
I did not know that.
You know the random space field that's in between there?
Yeah.
It's actually displaying code. It's like hexadecimal code. They're just little things. So,
well, how about that? That's actually really cool. And I just thought it was just something there so didn't make it easier so you can go blast the big alien at the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
But even with playing a game like Yar's Revenge and how, yes, like you said, simple to play, hard to master, even with Tetris, like when Tetris first came out. Easy to understand, hard to master, especially to a little kid who doesn't really understand what's going on, and he just sees flying blocks and goes, ooh, blocks.
And I assume you watch a little bit of the classic Tetris World Championship while you're in Portland last time with the people doing that at the 250th level, and you barely see the piece on the screen. It's already dropped. Yeah. And it's tough to master.
I don't think I've ever felt emasculated quicker because and
they're 15-year-old kids that were kicking butt. So.
I mean, it was cool to see young people up on that stage playing. It was really awesome because when you hear classic Tetris Championship, you think it's a bunch of, no offense, like people from the older generation, people who grew up playing those games back in the 80s, 70s, 90s, whatever. And to see younger kids in their teens and 20s, I'm like, oh, that's really cool because people still have fun with these games. But the way they were playing, and I would consider myself
they hold it kind of sideways like this.
Yeah. And they hyper roll. I think the technique is called hyper rolling. Another friend of the show, he told me what the exact terminology of it. But just seeing how quickly they were going down and working. I'm just sitting there going, I thought I was a decent Tetris player. Nope, I'm just gonna go that way. I don't belong. It was one of those things where like it's kind of like that Sesame Street thing of like, one of these people just doesn't belong here. That's me.
Yeah, gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
what else should we talk about?
Oh well, let's talk about that Kickstarter, because you mentioned the Kickstarter earlier. So we had Old School Gamer Magazine has had a successful Kickstarter prior, and we are now in another one. The link to that Kickstarter will be in the description down below. So tell us some more about Kickstarter 2 in a sense.
Last year we wanted to make a step up with the magazine, and to do that, we took the price of the magazine up from, it was like $5.95 to $11.95 as a result of the Kickstarter. We needed funding to be able to do that. We needed to see that there was backing from the retro gaming community that wanted us to do that. And it came together. We raised $30-some thousand to do it. That is only, of our subscribers, we brought in 150 subscribers. There's a lot of people that donated much more than just a subscription to us because they want to see a driven support. And we've already got a good handful of people doing that this year. We have our reader advisory board. You pay $175. You get 2 subscriptions. You get a T-shirt. You get some other cool swag. And you get a voice in there formalized through a chat group. Then we have some other higher level packages that include a subscription forever. As long as we're still around, you have a subscription forever. We do all this to attract attention. That's what Kickstarter really is. If you haven't familiar with it, Kickstarter is a way of getting something going, making sure the community is interested in what you're doing, and it's a marketing angle. So we only bring in about 1/4 of our subscribers off of Kickstarter each year, but it's a way to make commitments for new things we want to do, add more to the mix of what we are, and literally, we'll probably be doing these Kickstarters every year. Because some people like to subscribe that way. Some people like to subscribe to us via Patreon. We literally have 35 subscribers through Patreon. Some people wanted just the digital version, especially if they're overseas. They have a digital subscription. We want to be able to offer the magazine every way we can because we want to get magazines out there. The Kickstarter launched a couple weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago. It's going okay, not as fast as I want it to. So I'm out here talking to other friends, people like yourself, and getting the word out about it. And it wraps up literally the Monday after the Portland Retro Gaming Show.
Oh, so
that way, so I can make an extra push at the show, talk to a couple more players, and see if they're interested in helping us out with things. It's just a way of attracting a little bit of extra attention. In a weird way, it's sort of like the telethons that every year public radio does, or some Christian radio station you listen to does, or something like that. It's an extra way of every year saying, yes, we're here. We're continuing to do even more with it. Will you please bless us with your involvement?
Pledge drives. Yeah. When I was in college, one of my classes was doing an internship at 88.5 KCSN. And when I was like interning for them, they're like, hey, just FYI, pledge drive is coming up, pledge drive weekend. We got like all hands on deck. We're going to be working hard and working for this. I'm like, all right. And I was there helping man the phones, writing down information from people who pledged like X amount of dollars. So
yeah,
I am all 100% familiar with that.
So that's what we're doing with things. Our future in some form depends on where we want to go, depending on where the backing is with this thing. We could go down to just 4 issues a year. We could keep with the 6 to add more pages to the magazine. We're making decisions based on what happens with this, and does the industry want us to continue doing what we're doing? Are they happy with what we're doing? So.
I mean, I'm totally biased because I write for you guys, but yeah, I'm happy with what we're doing. I love what we're doing. I love the fact that I get to do this.
Yeah, and I want to keep it going too. But at the same time, I've been personally financing this, and it has been a losing effort for the last 6 years financially. Right. I can't keep going. So I don't mind it just breaking even, and that's my whole goal, is to break even with this. I haven't pulled a paycheck off this yet. My benefit to it is I've been able to vacation with my family, taking them to these gamer cons, and make them work. So it's kind of like a combination of fun and not fun. So me and my youngest that are going to Portland are getting there at 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday. We're going to go have fun, play video games. And then on Saturday we work the con. Sunday we fly back. It's a little trip with my kids. I love doing those. So that's why I'm doing it, because it's a nice family fun thing.
Yeah. And even when I went to Portland last year, I told my fiance, it's like, hey, I'm going. She's like, oh, you're going to this game convention? I was like, yeah, it's to get people on the podcast, to write stuff for magazines, for you, and and for the others I do. And essentially, it's just it was a working vacation, but it was like the best working vacation I ever had.
Yeah, we have fun doing this. I just want to see more of the faith that people have in our group of people that are putting this together. So
yeah, and
spread the word around about it. It wraps up as of the time we're doing this. What it's going to probably have like 2 more weeks left by the time this gets out to the world. But jump on it as quick as you can. Just search on Kickstarter or click on the link that he's going to put right below, and look for Old School Gamer magazine. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And to try to like bring some form of motivation, because as someone who is a big fan of physical media, I will always love holding up. Like, one of the things I love about not only just writing about this magazine, but the fact that this magazine and a few other video game magazines still exist in today's day and age, is that they are physical. Because even though I did grow up at the dawn of the internet, a lot of things were coming out online. People were just
Nintendo Power and EGM and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Nintendo Power, the PlayStation magazine that my family subscribed to, where we would get demo discs every month. Those were like the coolest things ever. And the fact that there are still, even for a while, I was subscribed to the physical Game Informer magazine for a good long while, because it's like, yes, Nintendo Power doesn't exist anymore. It sucks, but oh well. I'm bummed that I never got any Sega Visions issues, because I was a big Sega kid when I was young, obviously. And the fact that there are still magazines, especially this one, because even though like you said, it is a very niche topic. Old School Gamer magazine is a niche of a niche. Like I tell my friends, it's niche of a niche of a niche, but there's still so much good in there. You always will find really cool tidbits that you never knew. Like I was taught when I was writing about the Absolute Entertainment. I was like, I never knew about this. Or even when I was researching NES Maker and Mystic Searches, I was like, this gentleman literally had this idea when he was a kid, and it finally is coming to fruition nowadays. Yep. You always find these great stories, these great little tidbits about video games that you might have never known or found out through other channels. And I think that this is so yes, definitely. I am kind of tooting my own horn here because I love writing for you guys, but also let's keep this thing alive. This is a great.
Just spread the word. I mean, you can make a commitment as low as $20 a year to the magazine. You get access to the digital magazine, the current issues when they come out, all of our back issues. So, I mean, if you have the digital, you get access to all that kind of stuff. We've had some people throw us $5-10. That's great. The biggest thing that everybody can do, that if you already know about us, is spread the word among your friends. I want to get thousands of copies of this magazine out there for people.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, I have my 3 biggest fans: my fiance and my parents, who will try to buy everything I write. But at the same at the same time, getting this out there to people it's always nice to see them like pick up a magazine and like, oh hey, I learned about this really cool thing, and I think that's really cool.
Yep, we're doing good.
That we are. So, anyways, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much and also thank you so much for giving me a chance to write for the magazine. I guess
just keep on spreading the word, keep on writing, and I'll see you at a con probably sometime early next year.
Yep. So you are going to be at Portland Retro Gaming Expo this year, which is October. I'm looking at my calendar, but my calendar's still stuck on September. I haven't switched it over yet.
It's like 14, 15 neighborhoods, something like that. About 2 weeks from this weekend. I'll be at KC Retro. I'll be at a show in Columbus, Ohio, the Torg Expo coming up. And then next year, Midwest Gaming Classic Game Fest, Long Island Retro. We do about 25 of these shows a year. So
all the fun stuff, the good ones. And hopefully, is there, I always forget, but there is some social media for Old School Gamer, right?
There's some basic stuff out there. I need to work on a little bit more, but ultimately, if someone wants to get a hold of me, RB, just my initials, at oldschoolgamer.com, or just jump on the website. You can find me pretty quick there.
And of course, the website is oldschoolgamermagazine.com. Yep. That will, of course, be linked down below. And you can find me at BenMag27. Definitely scroll a while through my Twitter page for listeners who haven't yet, because I posted almost all my blog stuff, like when I was actually being active on Twitter. They're there. Or even just go to the Fake Nerd Podcast website, because if you go to my blog, a bunch, like I think Brandon said he put all my posts from OSG they're accessible.
Everything's there.
Everything,
Cool.
everything is there. So yeah, Ryan, thank you so much. You have a great time at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I'm really bummed I'm not going to be there because
let's plan on next year. You have good reason, family and stuff. Next year they'll have the dates out soon. Come meet Ben at the Portland Retro Gaming Show at the Old School Gamer booth.
Yeah, hopefully another expo too, because I've been wanting to go a little east. Because like I said, I live in California. I want to go eastward to some of these conventions. I want to go somewhere out east and
go look at Midwest Gaming Classic. That's one of my favorites. Milwaukee.
That would be awesome to go to. All right, but anyways, yes, check out if you're going to Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Check out Ryan. Check out the website. Go check out the Kickstarter. Thank you again, Ryan. And until next time, everyone, unpause.